I'm going to give you a scenario, and I need you to tell me what comes to mind.
Okay.
You ready?
I need more coffee. Hang on. What's going on here?
Okay. Here's the scenario. It's your birthday last year. You're at EPLP. You're riding the elevator. A tall white guy gets in, and you ask the white guy to sing "You Raise Me Up" by Josh Groban.
Were you in the elevator?
I wasn't in the elevator, but funny enough, the reason I
Wait,
bring
I
this
asked.
up. No, imagine that'd be crazy.
I
No,
was
it's
like,
actually.
Dude, is that your friend? What is happening right now?
Yeah. It's a friend of mine. It's a friend of mine named Benji McAvoy, and I threw up on my story. I was like, "Oh, interviewing Corporate Natalie today. What questions do you want to know?" And he shoots me this voice message, and he's like, "Dude, I spoke to her for like 20 minutes, and I rode an elevator, and we sung 'You Raise Me Up' by Josh Groban together." And I was like, "Oh, incredible story. I have to start off the podcast that way."
Funny. So that's just like typical me. Like people are like, what's Corporate Natalie versus Natalie? Like similar, just like different applications. Like that is so something I would do, just like improving in an elevator, forcing people to sing that are strangers. And like that probably made him very uncomfortable. But I had to do it. And I was with like my 7 best friends. We were all singing. So yes, that happened.
Why "You Raise Me Up" by Josh Groban?
I don't, I just think of these things off the dome, and that was what came to mind, and we were all singing. That's so funny. Wow. What are the odds? Thank you for starting it off that way. That really just threw me blast from the past.
That's so legendary. I'm usually not the one, or we're usually not the people to come on and do like a Nardwar moment. Nardwar, that music interviewer who just like finds the most ridiculous stuff. Usually not. But when he sent this to me, I was like, oh, this is gold. We got to start this way.
Gosh, if everyone I ever met in the wild would recall and remember the things I said, I pray. I am so off the cuff sometimes.
Do you think you'd ever do a reality TV show? Because you say this, and knowing you as a comedian, and knowing you as someone that like loves to entertain people, is that ever something that you'd see in the works?
I would never do a reality TV show. I think like being a creator, you see this window into like nothing truly is reality. And I think I would start to view my life through even an additional lens of like inauthenticity. Like that would scare me. I don't view reality TV as like funny. Like if I wanted to do something, I would do like a more scripted comedy TV thing, not really reality. Plus, I just like, I go by Corporate Natalie. I don't let people into like the intimate crevices of my life. You even knowing about that elevator, I'm now I'm freaking out already. I'm like, what else does he know?
Promise you I don't know anything else. And we even discussed before the pod, we're not going into your personal life, and I don't know anything else about your personal life. So don't worry, that's where it stops. That's as far as we're going.
It stops in that elevator. Yeah, we're done.
You said something interesting before. You said, jokingly, you're like, oh, who's Corporate Natalie versus Natalie? And I think when you see world-class performers and entertainers, like you have Beyonce, and then on stage she's Sasha Fierce, and they're two very distinct people, but they do it for a very distinct reason. Who is Corporate Natalie versus Natalie?
Yes, well, so Corporate Natalie stays within very specific guidelines of the jokes I make are specific to corporate. Of course, I've ventured out into like a little bit of dating, a bit of like golf, Natalie, whatever, but it's a very limited set of things. I think Natalie is like, I'm a funny person. I've grown up like I'm the one telling the stories at the dinner table. I'm like very extroverted. I think I've met a lot of creators that are really like actually shy, and that's not me at all. Like I'm very like I asked a stranger to sing "You Raise Me Up." Like if that's not that's real Natalie. So the only difference is like people meet me and they think I'm going to be some like buttoned up corporate person. Like I'm 25. Like I go out with my friends. I'm very social. So I think just that like Natalie is obviously a multifaceted person. Corporate Natalie is this one-dimensional like figure. I don't know. It's just funny. And then like when just like people will meet me, and it's weird to have this platform that's a bit. And so people assume that your life's a bit. It's like, no, my life's real. There are things that go on, so it's interesting, but not a ton of differences.
Are you starting to think about your content differently. So like, for example, when I'm looking at your page, a lot of it is corporate humor, you're making very niche jokes, but you've also started to sprinkle like some bachelorette content or some dating content or golf content, like you mentioned. So is that an intentional decision, or is that you thinking like, I need to diversify my portfolio in order to grow? Like, where does that come from, and how does that fit into the corporate Natalie TikTok sphere, social media sphere?
Yeah, well, I mean, they tell you when you start TikTok, find your niche. And I definitely did that. And like, that's what allowed Corporate Natalie to grow, was like my followers knew they were going to go to the page and see corporate stuff. I think Low Whaley is very similar, like the type of video you're going to get and people find comfort in that. I think the diversification comes from now just being like, okay, I can make jokes about other things. I'm personally like, I don't want to rip this work from home narrative forever. Like, I'm bored of it myself. And then also just like trying new things, seeing if as my life changes and other things happen, it's like that's good content. There are other things you can talk about. I think it's hard because the best creators are the ones that share their whole life, and like they're constantly streaming everything, every thought, every action. And I just like could never see myself doing that. And so it's sort of a jump between I don't know how to, without sharing every detail and making a joke about everything and looking at everything through this content lens. It's hard to get from like where I am to like a big, well-known influencer creator. And so I think I don't have the answer. I still struggle with like, how much do I want to share? What do I want to joke about? Because like joking about dating, it's like, I'm single, I'm 25. Like, I don't want to make a huge joke of it. I don't want people to go on a date with me and think like I'm going to make fun of this. So it's, it's hard. I'm very like cautious the things I make fun of.
I think the thing that's so interesting is like Delaney asks that question and you're like, yeah, like maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't really, what I hear is like, it doesn't really matter. You're just doing what you love, regardless if it doesn't fall within this like buttoned up corporate Natalie sphere. And I feel like it's because there's not that much pressure to make a lot of money as a creator, because you have everything else going on the side as a comedian, as an entrepreneur, as an advisor, and all that good stuff. Do you think that creators would be better off if they started off similar to you? It's like creating for passion on the side while having a solid income coming in.
Yes. I mean, I'm so thankful that one, money wasn't the driver for starting to make content. It was like passion, and I like making jokes. And the day I downloaded TikTok, I made one. I was like, guys, I'm going to be famous. I sent it to my friends. Like, I loved concept of creating, and I still love creating, and I make sure like every day that I'm not doing things that are inauthentic. But I do think also like coming from a corporate space and being able to build a media kit and pitch myself and talk with brands in a way of, I've worked for a brand, I've been on the brand side, and having that background, both corporate and that it was just a side thing, was so immensely helpful. And even how I view it today, like, and also knowing that I think a lot of people go in with a lot of pressure. There are even teenagers that are like, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a creator. It's like going into it without the pressure is so helpful. And because I know that it can go away at any moment. And like, I think having that as a reminder and not getting too swept up in like, I'm famous and I'm going to these big events and I'm better than anyone. It's like, I'm not better than anyone. My Instagram could be hacked and go away and I'd be Natalie and I'd be totally comfortable with that. So I think how you phrased it, it was immensely helpful.
So interesting, because I think today, like especially you coming from the TikTok world, and I know I heard you say in another interview that you started creating out of boredom. Like you just said, you're like, hey guys, I'm just going to post a TikTok and I'm going to be famous one day. And next thing, something just erupts. I wanted to get your opinion on this. You come from the corporate world too. You still work in the corporate world. And in the corporate world, like we have to go through 12 years of school. And then you probably have to do 4 years of university. And then you get to be at corporate Natalie. But corporate Natalie comes out of 3 years of just being bored and posting content on TikTok. How do you think that's going to hurt humans in the future? I know it's a loaded question, but like that quick rise where it might be a career, it might not, but you haven't had to go through the friction or the thought or the process to like slowly realize you really want to do this versus, oh, I just blew up one day. Maybe I keep going.
You're saying how will like the concept of just blowing up and entering into this life like maybe hurt people? I think it totally will hurt people. I had a friend once say, who's like an actress who has worked very hard in her career and life and gone to theater school to be an actress, and that world is brutal. It's like so hard. And then she started making TikToks and is making all this money and is doing the bit like, then she meets other influencers and she's like, I'm sorry, this who kind of, are big-headed and rude a little bit. And I think that's a known thing about some creators, and like no one specifically, everyone's doing their best, but like this kind of air, like I have followers and I'm someone, and she's like, I'm sorry, this role didn't exist 3 years ago. Like an influencer, what is this, And so not that it doesn't require talent, it's super hard and it's like a great job and it's super exciting and you work very hard to make content. But I do think like when you go to these big events and if you don't have like a real life outside of your content, it's a little scary to me because it could go away. And you'll always have followers and stuff. Like I think about the day I want to like when all these creators like, are people gonna retire? Like what I would love, when you have a job, you retire and you're done and you like live your life and you go golf and like whatever. But when do creators do they just leave their followers and say, bye, I'm done? Like, when does it end? Is this like my life for the rest of eternity? It's a little scary.
That's such an interesting question. Yeah, Cody.
I was just thinking, there's a YouTuber I watch and he is approaching 10 years this year on YouTube. And that is the question that he's facing. Like, do I graduate out of YouTube? My followers have been with me for so long. Do they even care anymore? Like some of it's repetitive. Or do I explore a business venture? Do I explore a different passion project? Like, where do I go from here? And the fact that we're having that conversation, I think he's like, 30 and thinking about like retirement next steps. It's like just a totally different world. In that same kind of vein, I think something that's interesting with your story is because you come from a corporate world, there's obviously like corporate expectations that are associated with social media and like the concerns around, okay, if I post this, I don't want to be associated with my job. I don't want that to get back to my job. But you kind of did the exact opposite. You leaned right in and you were like, I'm going to not only talk about my job, but I'm also going to make fun of my job, the colloquialisms, the language that comes with it. And you fortunately had like a really positive experience in the CEO of your company, is my understanding, was like, yeah, let's harness this and make it a thing. Let's like take this and run with it. How do you think your experience on social media would have went if that was the opposite? If instead of that calendar invite being like let's get you on the marketing team, it was like enough, like disassociate enough.
Totally. I think so. A few like guiding principles that I've always gone by with anything that I've posted publicly, and I still adhere to this, is like if my grandma saw it, I'd be proud of it. Like I don't tear people down. Even though I'm making fun of corporate America, I just did a New York Times like interview and she was like, why do brands want to work with you if you're ripping on corporate? Brands don't work with me because one, humor is great. That's another just like guiding thing. Like humor is a great way to translate and market a lot of things. I'm very thankful that like that's the thing that I do. And secondly, like I'm truly not ripping on my company. Bruce is a fictional character. Like I am making fun of things. It's funny because it's relatable and everyone can agree. I'm not like, even like when I'm working full time, my boss wasn't like, oh my gosh, are you going to make fun of me? And it wasn't like a fear because no, my videos wouldn't be relatable if it was making fun of some niche specific disagreement that we had. That's not. So it's always been, I think, Corporate Natalie, very intentionally, I keep it clean and I keep it relatable. And I encourage every creator to do that. I think people want to take to TikTok now and do that. And it's like, they're afraid that their job will see it. And I agree. I had that fear majorly. But like, you don't take to TikTok and say like, I hate my job and I hate my boss and this is just LinkedIn and everyone, it's like, yes, you're going to get fired. Like, sorry, that's the way the world works. But if you're doing more, I think, and now there's a lot more openness and posting on social media, which is great. I think building your personal brand, there's a lot of push for that. And that's been exciting to like do myself and see it grow this way. I never thought I would be a creator ever, ever, ever. Like, I've always been entrepreneurial and try new things, but never this way at all.
So when you rolled up to work that first day after your first TikTok went viral, what was going on in your head? Were you concerned about the reaction? Were you like, oh my God, my peers are going to see this? Like, how was that experience for you? If you can walk us through that, that'd be cool.
Well, I wish it was this big moment of like, everyone's looking at me. Oh my
Everyone's
God.
gonna know.
It's like, no, it was like a very slow sort of like people started to see the videos. And I worked at like a tech company that was like a pretty experienced tech company. It wasn't like early stage, right? I wasn't working with young people. Like I was working with a lot of people in their 40s and 50s. And same with my like consulting job. I was like the youngest person on the team. I've always been that way with my like, just, I don't know, the jobs I've had, I guess. And so it wasn't really like the people I was interacting with would have any idea. So it was a slow build. I think the main like kicker was when the CEO of the company found out about it. And I was like, okay, wow. So if he knows, it must be a big thing. But I was at a point then, even when I was like, if he fired me, I'd be like, okay, let's ride this out. Like, let's try it. And I work with brands all the time, and I work with companies that like I think would love Corporate Natalie. And I think a lot of companies would love to work with a creator who has built a brand themselves. So like I was confident even at that point that it would be okay. But it turned out even way better.
So you bring up a really interesting point about the companies would love to work with someone like Corporate Natalie or with a creator that already has a presence. And I want to get to that. But I've heard you talk about the story so often. Like you get called into the CEO's office. You think it's doomsday. It turns out to be the best day. Well, maybe not the best day of your life, but it turns out to be something amazing. I don't think creators have the opportunity to speak to executives very, very often. And so you go into that meeting. What is the CEO or the CMO, like what are they saying? How did they view TikTok in that moment or what you're doing in that moment? Give us a little insight if you're open to it.
Well, I feel so blessed to have been able to meet with these executives that I would have never had exposure to as a 25-year-old climbing the corporate ladder. And so being in a room with people at like any of my brand partners, I'm going to South by Southwest with Dell and I'm going to meet a bunch of executives. And like, that is such an honor. Like, and I, as like a innately corporate business person, it's like, oh my God, like I get a seat at the table next to a VP at Dell. Like, this is insane to me. And so I think there are probably some people still that are like, TikTok, whatever, like not a thing. I think a lot of people now realize the power of creators and the power of like growing a following and having a following to market products. It's like, if people don't know about your product, nothing's going to happen. And if you don't have a following, no one's going to know. And so there's more respect for this field and social media, like more so than ever before. So yeah, I mean, it's funny hearing a 50-year-old guy say like, so I saw your TikTok. Okay, well, what now? But it was, I mean, especially in tech too. I think I'm in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, it's like a little more forward thinking kind of corporate world. Maybe, Chicago or New York or these more rigid areas would be different. But I've had a very positive experience with how social media is perceived.
How do you think creators like yourself are going to be part of the corporate system in the next 10, 15 years? So I think it is a big opportunity, similar to what you're saying, of you already have a strong personal brand. It's hopefully some type of clean or like it aligns with their values, but you are their media company, essentially. And then like you can be put on panels and it's such a great PR play. What do you think that future holds for brands? Like how do brands hire and work with a Corporate Natalie, but not as a influencer marketing type campaign, but truly as an employee?
I think it's hard. I don't know if every creator would be as excited or pumped to meet with execs in corporate America. I think the allure and the sexiness of going to a Justin Bieber concert and a Drake concert at a Revolve party is more exciting than like being an employee of a company to build content for them. So I think there's a little bit of a threshold of where you're at in your creator journey of, are you getting flown to Dubai to go to a private Beyonce concert? Because I don't think you're going to want a salary at that point. Or are you, early stage creator who has these ideas and you're still kind of maybe working a corporate job and you would get this bump up to be like the face of a company on their TikTok page. So I think that pipeline that you're describing of creators being involved with execs and doing this is maybe in the sense of a panel and speaking to your creator journey, yes. But like being an employee, I don't know if that's the path that we're headed in.
So I see it, like I see the opportunity though. I think the opportunity is...
I see the opportunity too, but I think selling it to like a general creator is a little hard for them to go. I could do a brand deal for, I could do this many brand deals and I wouldn't have to work, and that's a lower lift. And so why would you go from being your own boss to having a boss? It's just like, from the creators I've talked to, and me, of course, like I love it. But do you see with other creators you talk about like an interest in rejoining the workforce or doing that?
So I was just living with a creator who's a friend of mine. Shout out Nathan Kennedy. We were in LA for the last month. And I was trying to pitch him this idea the whole time. He's in the personal finance niche. And I was like, man, imagine this. There aren't any banks, for example, that have hired a creator. And there aren't banks that have a media arm. And there's so many banks in the world. What is the differentiator with consumers? I don't know, maybe like a $50 gift card here. Or like, oh, you're now the official sponsor of a big sports team there. Like there's not that many differentiators. If you found a way to be integrated into this massive bank, they'd give you the opportunity to go to panels, to meet with people. They want you to be essentially their voice, their PR arm, because they don't have that otherwise. In terms of brand building, I was like, dude, imagine that over 5 years. The people you would meet, the expectation that would be built, and your credibility. And then you jump back out and then you do the creator thing again. It just feels like a hack in terms of like really gaining that celebrity credibility compared to trying to do it on your own.
I guess, sort of like people, I was doing kind of man on the street interviews with SoFi, actually a bank in New York. I was just there, and I work with them a lot in their creative team. And it's like super cool to be a part of sort of the writing process and doing that. And I think your friend who's a finance creator too probably has a bit more of a corporate lens looking at that stuff. But I think it's just like the flow from Progressive. It's sort of like, do you want to limit yourself to one brand when there's so many cool brands you could work with? Like, do I want to I could be in a commercial for Paycom, doing the man on the street interviews for SoFi, do a Revolve deal and get some clothes because I love fashion and that's like a side thing that I do, so it's hard to say like, oh, let's commit to one thing, because I think there's so much out there as a creator, that so many brands to work with and fun opportunities, that I think doing one would be like hard.
Fair play. Well, coming from you, I guess that means a lot, because you're probably the creator that thinks about this the most or has like the most exposure to it.
I'm always thinking about this. Oh my gosh.
Are you actually always thinking about it? Really?
I am. I think about, like you mentioned, do I want to build a company? What do I want to do next? Like it's always, I'm always thinking about it. I'm such like a 3, 5, 10-year plan person that it's the thought of just living on a whim and making content is like so unstructured and scary to me. Like I'm very type A. I'm not like a creative in any way. So I'm always thinking. I just filmed TikToks with Barbara Corcoran, and she's like in her 70s, like ripping a full TikTok account, killing it. And I'm like, Barbara, do you ever want to be out of the spotlight? Like just, because I always envision myself, like I do this for a few years and then I become an advisor and I'm like a little more behind the scenes. And like, do you ever want to go to the grocery store and not be recognized? Like all these things. And she's like, no, I love it. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be invisible. I'm like, I've never got that advice. Okay, I guess. Like, so maybe I'll be doing TikToks at 75 and walking carpets and just like doing it. But it's very impressive what she does. We'll see.
She's crushing it too. Like I was watching her TikToks on her own, are very funny. And some of the integrations she's done, like she does the house tour with a guy in New York and showed her house, and your TikTok with her was very funny with the money gun. Like the stuff she's doing is just so outlandish. But it does make me think about how she and how you think about those sorts of collaborations. Like how did that come to be? Did she reach out to you? Did you reach out to her? You both like, we're in the business world, like let's bond audiences and see what magic we can make. Like how are you approaching a collaboration opportunity with someone like Barbara?
It was such an honor for me. That was like, we connected over Instagram. You become mutuals with these like fellow creators. And I sort of like met with her team and we wrote a couple of scripts and talked about just like if I was in New York making it happen. So just like getting time on her calendar was such an honor. I'm sure like I view it as like a total win. I wonder if she looks back on it. It was like, what a waste of an hour of my time doing them. I'm not sure, but I was just like very thankful. But in general, collaborations it's interesting. Like it's, creators build this whole brand just filming themselves. There's, unless you're like a family or a couple creator, but it's like, it's kind of awkward and weird being like, do you want to film together? It's like, who has a bigger following? Are you using people? Like, I don't know. So it's just, there's a lot of hesitancy with that. But I think whenever you do crossovers, like with Rod or Corporate Bro, these other people I like, I'm friends with, it always does well. It's exciting to see those collaborations. So I like that.
In that same sort of vein, so your Corporate Bro collaborations in particular show up on my For You page all the time. They're so funny. But I do wonder about like your audiences. Like, do you guys have different audiences? You're obviously making similar content in the corporate sphere. Are you talking about that? Are you like, okay, my audience is a little bit more 18 to 25, yours is a little bit more 25 to 44? Like, how are those conversations from a business perspective going? So they make sense from a business perspective? Or is it just like we get along? We like to have similar content. It's just like fun vibe. So we're making these little skits. Like, how are you approaching those sorts of collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting when you say that because and we talked about like, do I plan my content? Do I think about those? It's like I say like I want to make content for myself. Ross is Corporate Bro is someone I respect as like a comedian. Like I view we laugh together. He's in San Francisco, which is like amazing. There's no creators here, it feels like. So we can film together, and that's like awesome to, you know, be able to like just be with someone else who's filming themselves all day. But I think the audience thing, it's like we more view like the concept and the script and the video. It's less like how will it be perceived. And I think that cripples a lot of creators because you could post a video that you spend weeks on and it just like doesn't do well and it doesn't get pushed out. And so if we spent time being like, okay, well, you're largely male and I'm largely female and like 18, you know, it's like it wouldn't affect. It's like, is it funny? I don't know. You know, what are we talking about? So I think it's more we start with the scripting and see how it goes from there.
I think you can really tell when you watch the content too that you guys were just giggling away as you're writing the script. Like, this is so funny. I heard my boss say this. This is the new Slack term. Like, it's very obvious that there's like a fun undertone and it's not manufactured, which is always what you want, right? Like, that's how the audience enjoys it.
Totally. And we'll say I'm not doing, like, he's a little riskier with his humor. Like, I'll be like, I'm sorry, like, we're not making that joke. So like, we'll definitely like bounce back and forth. So of course there's that, but it's not like there's no like end goal in mind. But we always say like any piece of content we make, we're like, I cannot wait for this to break the internet. Like, this is going to be groundbreaking, earth shattering. Like, we're fully convinced, but always.
You said on another podcast talking about comedy and writing and having fun in skits that you acted when you were younger, or you were in acting?
I didn't act when I was younger. I did actually on a show that Ross wrote. And so we went to LA for a month. We lived together, him, me, and a few other cast members in this like tiny Airbnb. And he wrote this thing and we would basically just act all day. He like raised money from some early stage companies actually to put it on, which was really cool to see like he just from the beginning to end carrying it out and making it happen in LA. And he asked me to be one of the characters. So I was super thankful. I have no acting experience, zero. I wish. Like, if I grew up as a thespian, oh my God, it'd be way, way better. But it was comedy. It takes place in an office in a startup setting. And he kind of trusted me like creatively of like how I would play and view this character. The role is Katie. It's actually being released soon. Very exciting. But that was like such a new, exciting opportunity.
So then why comedy? Like, I think the thing that people know you so well for is your scripting. Like, you don't just do a trend and then post a video. Like, there's some thought into what you're going to say, why you're going to say it, and how it relates. How does comedy weave into your life?
Comedy, well, I definitely do trend. I do stupid trends, but I like put the corporate or comedic like a spin on it. Comedy relates to my life in every way. I mean, whether it's like a really scripted thing that I'm doing either for a brand deal or like something I've been working on, like a longer form piece, or just like a stupid little trend, like I always just try to weave in some level of humor. I think it's also like people come to my page again to laugh. And if I started doing these like really serious like thirst traps or really serious, like, I don't know, something else, it just wouldn't. That's not why people come to the page. And that's not my expertise. I couldn't do like dramatic acting. I could act in a funny way and do my vocal intonations and stuff. But like, I know my strengths. Like, I can't do it all. So I try to keep comedy as sort of the guiding light.
And you write scripts for other companies too, is what I've heard. Or other social media teams.
Yes. So some of the things I like help with are, so with the advising you mentioned that I do, I help basically their in-house social media team either write scripts or be aware of like trends that are on the horizon, or if they have a concept or a script that they want to run by me, I could add like a layer of humor to it or change it or say like this line probably wouldn't land. So that's sort of what I do now. Ideally love to do is write like a long form piece, whether it's like a series or a movie or something that sort of like was about me or about like someone in their 20s working. Or so I have like a lot of I have like a notes page of ideas or like bits or things that I'll ideally try to work into this longer form piece. But yeah, that would be my goal, would be to write something that I'm really proud of.
Okay, so on the topic of comedy, you've said a couple times in the interview, like, oh, I don't know if it'll land. So you're obviously thinking about it in like a very strategic way. What goes into making something funny? Like, what are you thinking about? What are the elements that you think about when you're coming up with a concept to make sure that it does so-called land?
I think comedy is like not something you can teach or describe. It's sort of like a feeling. Like, I think I have a lot of friends that would say like, I'm just not a funny person. And that's like totally fine. Like, you have a million other strengths. Like, I think humor is like really hard to quantify, and it's sort of a feeling, and that's really annoying to say. And I hate when people like artists are like, it's just a feeling, but like it sort of is. And I think if I wanted to get prescriptive about it, I'm able to see like what videos do well on my page, what jokes land, what type of comedy sort of works if I try like a bit or a voice or things like that. But there's no like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, there's no process for being like, okay, let's write something that's not funny, and then now let's add the humor layer to it. It's like, it just sort of comes together, you know?
But I feel like that's the best place to be, is almost like what you can't describe is usually where the magic happens, because the stuff that you can describe, then everyone can do the same thing. And so it's cool to see you in that lane, say like you have that feeling. What's the feeling you get when you know a script, or when like you have this funny line that's about to come out, like as it comes to you in your brain? Like, is it tingles? Like, do you feel it somewhere in your body and you're like, oh, this thing is so exciting, I know this is going to work so well?
Well, yeah. So it's more like my live sort of when I'm like, when I was like doing these interviews on the street with SoFi, and there was actually no script. They trusted me enough to improv basically the entire thing. So there were like people who were casted who knew the general, like, this person's going to be interviewing you. And then I was given like one line that I had to tie it at the end. Maybe like, so would you break up with your bank and go with SoFi? Like, one thing that I had to basically get to at the end, which for me was like a huge challenge, but like such an honor to be trusted with that initiative. And so I think like the feeling of like seeing Video Village laughing at the joke that I said that I just improv'd off the cuff, like that's the fuel for me. Like, making people laugh like live is so great. So when I'm with Ross writing and we're scripting, I'm like, what if we say, and like we both start dying laughing? Like, that is the joy for me. It's less like how many views or comments. Like, that's not as like rewarding. I think just as someone who, my life goal is to please and make people laugh, and I've always been that way, that's sort of like the best form of currency, is just like breaking out a table with laughter or seeing people like in real life laugh. So that feeling is unmatched.
I'd love to see a behind the scenes camera. Like, you just throw a camera when you guys are writing, or when you're writing, and like see that moment when you guys are dying on the floor, and
Yeah.
you know something, and you know something's going to hit. Have you ever thought of releasing like BTS, because there's so much that goes into it?
Sometimes, I mean, it's weird. Like, again, I always say I'm not the best like creator. So like my mind would never go to like, let's set up a camera and meta sort of like watch ourselves write it. Like, I would never think that. Maybe I should. Great idea. But my mind doesn't go there. I'm like thinking about, we're making something for the camera. Why would, but now I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll start filming the process.
I'd pay to see it. I think that'd be hilarious. Because you know, like the feeling when there's a joke and you're the only one laughing, but it is the greatest feeling in the world. It's like, it doesn't matter if no one else finds it funny. Like, I think this is amazing and this is giving me everything I need. I feel like that moment is so special and so cool. So if you can capture that, even if it doesn't land or it doesn't do well, like, what a cool moment to look back on and be like, oh, those are the moments I want to keep trying to achieve.
Totally. And Ross and I, when we're together, we've talked about our collaboration a bunch, but sometimes like we'll have a script and we'll be like, should we just do that one for us? Like, I don't even know if people will like it, but maybe we'll just make that for us, because that sounds so fun and funny. Like, we did one of like, so you want to be a content creator, and we were just like ripping on, you saw it was a Dell ad, actually. It was sponsored. It was like ripping on no relationship you have from here on out will be genuine. So just like your best friend, your videographer, your family, that's content. And so we just ripped on like, and we wrote this script and we were like, we were in stitches while we were writing. And we were like, let's just like, this is for us. And then it took off. It was really good. But we loved that process.
It's kind of giving like 13-year-olds in your basement filming something together. You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of like, this is funny and nobody else. And you're like showing your parents, look at our funny skit. And they're like, it's not as funny. But for you guys, it's the best.
Totally. I've always been the performer for my parents. I guess I do have sort of an acting past. My Drops of Jupiter music video that I made with my friends when we were younger, like if that counts, then yes, I come from a pretty strict acting background.
Is that video public?
No. Don't even. No chance.
If I could get you a brand deal and that brand would pay to unlock that vault so we could see that music video, how much would I have to get a brand to pay?
I don't even know where it is, truthfully. Like, it was sad.
Yeah, my ass, you don't know where that you
I'm like,
know where that video is.
Camcorder? Is it on iMovie? Like, I don't know. No, I like love cringy, funny stuff. Like I would release it if I could find it. I asked my mom actually the other day, there was that trend of like, I wish I met you sooner. It was like me sooner. It's like the kid performing. Like, I was asking for a cringy video. She couldn't find him either.
I don't know. I still don't believe that. But if it ever does come out and you want a brand deal, let me know. I know exactly who to go to, and we can really bump the price because it's a 101.
Okay. I'll think on that for sure.
On that topic, talk to me about, you are one of the only creators that I know that is doing it extremely well and has done amazing brand deals, has worked with celebrities, worked with various different companies, but you're self-represented. You are your agent, you are your manager. Why did you make that decision? I think that's so interesting.
I think it probably stems from being a control freak. So I like to know what's going on with my business. I think it's hard to even like, if I knew I could make a deck better than a coworker, like I'd do it first. And just like I'm that type of person, which is horrible. Like empower others. I'm bad. Like I need to be less of that. But I think with, I quickly learned, like you mentioned, like you've only been doing this for 2 years. Like, yes, but I treated it like I was studying, and I would like talk to other creators about their rates and like see how much I could charge brands and like push the limit. Would say a number that was absurd because the brand was something like Bud Light. Like, oh, really? All right, let's see what we can do here. And like seeing it work, and then like building a media kit and using like these things that I've learned in corporate to like sell myself. I think I'm the best advocate for myself. And there are amazing agencies and managers and people that could definitely like offer a lot of value. But I think for now, like I'm my best advocate and I'm able to understand the process enough to where I don't seem uninformed. I don't seem like I seem like I know what I'm talking about. Like I know all about usage, exclusivity, boosting, all these things that like I sort of self-taught. And why give someone 20% of your deal if you can sort of just do it yourself, right?
But didn't you say you're doing this for everyone else? Like you just want to make other people happy? And wouldn't that 20% make someone else happy?
Oh, I don't want to make an agent in LA happy. No.
I'm joking.
No, no, absolutely. What if I answer? It's like, you're right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, no chance.
I don't think UTA needs, my 20%. I think they're doing just fine. Yeah.
Delaney and I are friends with a bunch of people at those agencies, so we're going to plead the fifth and not say anything on that topic.
Yeah.
But tell me this. You talk about you're in a really unique position because you know the corporate world, and so you know what works from a corporate side, and you've taken that into your pitch and to how you communicate with brands. What are those things that you've learned from the corporate side that you find to be so effective in communicating your value?
I think just so I treat the brand process like a consulting project. So I start with my media kit is like the thing that I'm most proud of. It has testimonials of working with past brands that I've asked like really successful brand partners to write. And any creators listening right now, like if you have a really great brand deal, like ask them to write 3 sentences about how it was and ask if you can use that. So I have like some pretty good like client testimonials, like working with Natalie was great. We saw this like return, whatever. I also have like a big sort of like kind of demographic page, which I think is very specific to me. That's awesome. Is my audience is like super informed millennials who have buying power. So I'm able to say like, there are a lot of TikTokers that have really young followings, like starting at like age 12. It's like that person doesn't have money to buy what you're selling, right? But like a 35-year-old working in corporate America could maybe buy a Dell laptop if they wanted to. Like they can make that buying decision. And so I try to like tell the story of my audience and why that would be a better sell than potentially working with another creator. And then I also just like, I treat it very much like I'm selling something. Like I have packages of like the manager package. You get one TikTok, one Instagram, the director package. And I bundle it up in these like kind of cool and exciting ways. And I've had a lot of brands say like, this media kit's awesome. So that's like how it starts. And I think that's a cool thing that I've learned from my consulting days of building a good deck, my like sales days of here's how to sell myself. So yeah, those are a few little tips of if you're a creator building a media kit, and just always like at the start, fake it till you make it. Like I would be on a client call in my job as a consultant. I'm 22 years old. I have zero skills. Like, please, I just graduated college. I majored in fun. Like, come on. Why am I on the client site and they're asking me like a question like, what? Ask the partner. But you're able to say like, you're able to just fake it till you make it because they're paying you a lot of money for your consulting services. And like, I think just if they're like, what's your rate for usage? You could be like, oh, I have to check with my team on that. Like I used to say I had a team. It's just me. Like what? I don't have a team. I have a team. I have someone working for me who I love very much, but I never like, and I started, it's just like faking it. Like I started another email account, like admin at Corporate Natalie, that it was me at the start. Now it's actually someone, but it was me being like, oh, let me loop in my assistant. What? You don't have an assistant? And I'm sure like now I do. So any brands listening, like this is all real. But if you worked with me in 2020, that was all me. Like, let me tell you, I don't have a team. Okay. Like, I think just approaching it that way is smart.
One, super smart. I think the idea of we live in a world where it's so easy to create content and TikTok's like blowing people up now, sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes for not. But to say, here's my true influence beyond just followers and engagement, I think is huge. And so that makes a lot of sense. Like you're taking that, you understand the corporate world and bringing it in. But I can also imagine that hearing you say this, and I know this is the personality, and this is something you've said often on podcasts, and I'm sure your friends see you in a similar way. My guess is creators have come to you to say, hey, can you represent me? Like, you know exactly your value, you know how to pitch it. Is that something in the future of potentially building some type of business where you're representing clients or representing creators because you know exactly what to do and you understand both sides?
I would love that. And I've heard people say like you should be an agent. Like that would be awesome. I think the one way that I do that right now is I started a company with my roommate that's virtual assistants for influencers and creators. When I first started this, like I mentioned, like there was a lot of administrative burden. There's a lot of inbound emails. There's a lot of DMs and stuff that like when you're working a full-time job, you just don't have time to do. And so we started this company to like help lift that administrative burden, even like responding to comments on sponsored posts. It's like just like having someone to help you do that. And the upfront part of that is like this placement fee where I, to the creator, will review their media kit, review their rate sheet, give them sort of this like advice to enable them to hopefully like earn more money or speak better with brands. And so I do a little bit of that sort of, I would call it more consulting now than like representation, but I love it. That's like a really fun part of what I do. I love empowering other creators to own their own business because I think when you go with an agency and you start outsourcing your PR and all this stuff, it's like super helpful. And if you're a huge creator, you absolutely need that. Like I'm not a massive creator, but like you can lose, I don't know, like you lose out on a lot of things and a lot of ownership of your own brand and a lot like what brands are you working with? If you're not seeing all those emails and who is reaching out to you even, like I would be so scared if I didn't even see like a brand working with me, like, but oh, they didn't have budget. Well, I would still work with them because I love Aritzia. Like, why didn't my manager tell me that? You know, like those things scare me. But yeah, I love helping other creators.
Go back on you building a business. So I think throughout this conversation, we've spoken about you as a creator, you as a corporate employee, you as a comedian, you as this actor, and now here's like you as a founder. How did that idea come to be? Walk us through that. That's super, it's super unique to have a creator be like, okay, we're creating and we're doing this. And oh, I see a problem in the market. let me start a business?
Yes. So I'm super thankful that having a following has opened these doors. I would never have been able to start this business without my creator network and following. So like to any creator out there who has like a dream or a vision or wants to try something else, like now is the time. When you have a following, you can do these things and try it, and like people will listen to you. It's very like I feel very blessed to be in a position like this. I think with the starting a company, I've always been like super entrepreneurial. I've said on podcasts before, like I never knew my entrepreneurial spirit would show itself in me selling myself and like me being the business. So it's fun starting a business that's like not entirely dependent on me creating videos that make people laugh. That's been fun. But yeah, I started a jewelry company in college that I like actually sold my senior year. Like it was like started it from the beginning to then. I was like had car washes as a kid. I've always been this way. So then this company started from something that I knew and a problem that I saw, and I was able to sort of just like build it from the ground. And we're still learning. We have like a set number of clients, and it's not like we can scale immensely. It's just the two of us, but doing it has been really fun to see and experience and learn that side of the business.
What's something that you have picked up that surprised you since starting this business within the creator space that you might have not have had visibility into before?
Just that like that like it's hard work and it's like a really respectable thing. Like I think I used to judge creators and influencers and be like, that's not a hard life. Like you like that. I'm working a corporate job. I'm like, I know what hard work is. It's like, this is a hard thing to do. Not hard, just like this requires like effort. And I think I just like respect people that build their own brand and have the confidence to like post a video of themselves. Like I just have a newfound respect for the space and the power that influencer marketing holds. And I think I was like jaded and just uninformed before and maybe jealous. I don't really know. Like I was just like, why do you get to go to these brand trips? I want to do that. But now I'm just like, I have nothing but respect for the hustle that it is.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't quickly mention your Forbes 30 Under 30 nomination. And can you speak to us a little bit about you self-nominating? I know that it was a bit of a trek to get there, and just what that journey looks like now that you're on the list and the moment you found out you had made it for 2022.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That was super exciting. It was, I think I've always just known about the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Like I remember when I was younger, like I would read the list when I was when I was 15. Like I've just always wanted that. It's such a weird thing to want. It's like be an astronaut.
At 15.
Like, yeah, like what? Like, why do you want that? I self-nominated. Again, you're your best advocate. And I guess you just fill out this form and like I didn't think anything would come of it. And so then I got on the list and I woke up and was on it and was like, oh my God. Like I also didn't think at 25, I was just planning to nominate every year until I like was 30. But I got it at 25. I'm like, wow, did I do enough? Like I went to the event and I was like, everyone here is changing the world. Like I make TikToks. Hang on, let me do a little bit more. But I was super honored. It was really exciting. I think it's like people are like, did it change anything for you? It's like, no, it's just like it's just something that happened and it's very exciting. But my life didn't change immensely from the nomination. I wish it did. I wish I just like could charge $1 million now for a brand deal because I'm 30 under 30, but it's not.
It's a pretty cool accolade, though, to be able to tell people you're on the list. Like, that's pretty sick.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm very, very honored. It was really exciting.
Well, I think this has been a really cool 50-minute episode. It's so cool to see your different tracks. I think you have like 5 or 6 different hats that you wear, or 5 different, like you've got Corporate Natalie, Comedian Natalie, Founder Natalie, Consultant Natalie, I don't know, many different Natalies. And in a world where this creator space is so new, seeing someone that's doing something so different is probably really inspiring to a lot of people. And the fact that you represent yourself as well and have the comedian angle is very cool. So on behalf of me and Delaney, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing everything you did. And we are excited to just keep following the journey.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me on. You were both incredible interviewers, and I can't wait to listen to the episode.